welcome to Miriam Ipke's house.
How did your GCSEs going? No, I got the right person.
Yeah.
You got the right person.
No, you've got the right person, right?
Andrew can share that with you.
What happened?
That's good, Andrew.
We
If you think
found
you're
out-
young enough to have a 16-year-old.
I'm not done yet.
We found out
Yeah, but
Andrew
how
has
did
a
your one
daughter.
go down last
Yeah,
week,
but
last
that's-
Friday or something?
Yeah,
Old enough to
today I
tell.
had one as well. I had maths today.
And how did it go?
You look good for it, though.
Pretty good.
Answered all the questions?
Almost all of them.
How old is she? Has she been
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's do this. So let me just start with something which I did touch on last week, and I just would like to clarify it a little bit. We were talking about that we have got a few Rosh Hashanahs in a year, a few New Years in the year, and I looked it up again, and
Definitely more than 4.
there's, of course.
You said there's 4.
No, because the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah starts, the first Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah says, Arba Rosh Hashanah, there are 4 different Rosh Hashanahs. And then everybody asked me, I think Leah was here or someone, and they almost stoned me for saying that there are 4 Rosh Hashanahs. But I looked it up again, and the point was that the main point why I quoted it was because there's a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. It's actually also a Mishnah, but not the first Mishnah. It's a bit further down inside the Masechta, where the Mishnah says that there are 4 different periods in the year where certain things are being judged. And one of those periods is Shavuot, where we are judged for the produce which is growing in the fields. Okay. Yes, on Shavuos. So not the produce in terms of wheat, and that's the reason why I'm bringing it, because now you are almost stoning me. No, but that's the reason why
I'm saying you're wrong. I just.
That's good. No, that's huh? Exactly. No, so the Gemara says be'atzeres nidoinin ala peiros. Yeah, on Shavuos, which is called atzeret.
We're in school. They have like things you draw.
Which one?
Sorry, Haga cuts there.
Oh, the things to cut the
We
wheat.
cut the wheat.
Yeah.
That was fine. We never understood the difference, but we would have it in our pictures.
Okay, so there you are.
In the
Shavuos
circles.
is called Chag HaKotzer, and it's called Shavuos, and it's called Chag HaAtzeres.
What does cut in?
Kotzer means to cut,
Okay.
to shorten, katzar, yeah? So you're shortening something,
Oh.
and that is what Chag HaKotzer means. And here are the boys, which we were missing
So
all
what's
the time.
3
Come,
wise men?
go,
They come bearing gifts.
watch the gable. Right, so basically, the Gemara says that be'atzeres nidoinin al peiros ha'ilon. On Shavuos, which is called Atzeret, we are judged for the fruit which are growing on the tree. Now, this needs a little bit of thought, because usually we are thinking that Rosh Hashanah is the day where everything is judged. Rosh Hashanah on the 1st of Tishri, and here we are suddenly talking about Shavuos, which is bang in the middle of the year. It's like it's not even at the beginning of a month, yeah, because Shavuos is like on the 6th, 7th, or on the 8th of the month, and it's not at the very beginning of the month. And why are we judged about fruit in the middle of the summer? Which, you know, what's the connection here? So the Gemara explains, and not only the Gemara explains, and the commentators there explain the following thing. There's a pasuk in Sefer Devorim where it says, "Ha'odom eitz ki ha'odom eitz hasoda." The man, the human being, is considered to be the tree of the field. Okay, a human. Yeah. Ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh. Ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh. Okay. Good. So the human being,
Translate that.
the key, because ha'adam, the human being, eitz hasadeh is considered to be the tree of the field. And that pasuk is brought in connection with the mitzvah of Bal Tashchris. Yeah, the Gemara, the Torah tells us that if we are going to war,
Yeah.
you get the translation.
1 second.
Ki
The man is
ha'adam
considered to be a man. Yeah.
eitz.
Okay, so like his actions are being judged. Okay.
Yeah. So wait a second. We are getting there in a minute. So that verse is brought in the Chumash in connection with the halacha of Baltashres. The Torah tells us that if we are going into war and we are conquering a land of someone else, then we should be careful not to cut down fruit trees. This is the beginning of that pasuk, and then the pasuk finishes with the reasoning. Why should we not cut down fruit trees? For the human being is like a tree in the field. This is what the Torah says. So that pasuk is very cryptic because what's a human being got to do with a tree and with a field? Too many problems here, right? Right.
No, there's a lot of comparisons.
Exactly, but it's quite a weird comparison.
Isn't that why we have Tu B'Shvat? Because that's the Rosh Hashanah of New Year of the trees.
So that's an amazing point. Actually, you should ask me a question now, because if I just said that on Shavuos we are judged on the fruit, then what is then Rosh Hashanah for the trees on Tu B'Shvat? Tu B'Shvat is not Shavuos. Tu B'Shvat is the middle of the winter.
Plants
And
or
so when is the harvest?
I think we could give it back.
Shavuos or
No,
Sukkot.
Shavuos is not the harvest. Sukkot is harvest.
Sukkot, then it's
Okay,
like
so no,
the process.
but we have got two dates. We've got one date is Tu B'Shvat, where the Gemara says, where the Mishnah says it's the Rosh Hashanah for the trees, and then I am telling you now that we are judged on fruit on Shavuos. So this seems to be a contradiction. Either it is Rosh Hashanah on Tu B'Shvat, or it's judgment. How do you consolidate those two concepts? And this is going to be part of the thing which I want to explain.
I still
So-
don't understand we are judged for the fruit on Shavuos. What does that mean?
We are judged how much fruit should grow in the coming
Okay,
year.
fine. That makes
Yeah, and
sense.
how much of that fruit which really grows will be collectible.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get
What are we
worms.
entitled to?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes there's I don't know hail. There's hail, and hail is destroying the whole harvest. There's that. And sometimes you get grapes growing beautifully the whole year, like the whole season, and literally a week before the season goes to an end, the whole thing is spoiled through bad weather, through a strong rain or whatever it could be. Or sometimes there's not sun there's not enough sun. There can be a million reasons why fruit should be spoiled on the field, right? And this is what we are judged on Shavuos.
So as in, he judges us, and then he decides what's going to be throughout the year for each field.
Exactly. Okay, so
Like Shavuos, but for the trees.
right.
I mean, like
Rosh
Rosh Hashanah
Hashanah,
for
but for
us.
trees.
So he's asking, what is it for trees on Rosh Hashanah?
No, so not on Rosh Hashanah, on Tu B'Shvat, because the trees usually. What's Tu B'Shvat?
Tu B'Shvat is something else.
What
The
is Tu
beginning
B'Shvat?
of when it starts to grow.
So what's the point?
It's his birthday. It's nothing to do with
Okay,
It's
fine.
like Rosh Hashanah. It's not like the beginning of when.
Stop.
Perfect, amazing. Yeah, that's exactly the point. Because the Gemara explains that Mishnah. The Gemara says that on Tu B'Shvat, what happens on Tu B'Shvat is because the sun starts to get stronger and stronger, so the energy which comes into Earth, which then gets fed into the trees, this starts to happen on Tu B'Shvat. So it's a kind of a birthday for when everything starts to rejuvenate. This is what happens on Tu B'Shvat. But what happens on Shavuos is that the Kodesh Baruch Hu sits in heaven and he decides how many of the fruits should be collectible at the end of the season, how much can we harvest of it, how much will really be usable, and how much quality will be in the fruit.
But it hasn't got that to do with Parnassah, because the ones that are growing
It
here,
has.
it's their Parnassah.
Okay, so wait a
on
second.
Rosh Hashanah
Wait a
itself.
second. That's where I want to go. And this is the reason why I bought that pasuk in Sefer Dvorim, where it says, Ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh. Yeah, because we are still trying to find the connection to Shavuos. Why is that dafka on Shavuos? Why does it happen on Shavuos that the Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to judge about the quantity and the quality of fruit? Why on Shavuos? What has it got to do with Shavuos?
Because there was flowers on
Yeah.
the scene.
No, well, the flowers could be,
But if the trees
Flowers are fruits as well.
if the trees
Fruits are flowers.
blossoms.
have the birthday
Yeah.
and they have the judgment day,
Yes.
what do we have like Shavuos, but for us, because we have Rosh Hashanah, which is the Judgment Day. What do we have equivalent to Shavuos for people?
Okay, so I'm going to show you. Shavuos itself is the day. And now you're getting to the point, because that's exactly the point. The point is... Huh?
One's the opposite. Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah,
Yeah.
for us is on Rosh Hashanah.
Yes.
Rosh Hashanah for the trees, like the Judgment Day for trees,
Is on Shavuos.
Is on Shavuos.
Yeah.
But Shavuos is our birth.
It's the nation birthday.
Yeah, creation.
It's not
birthday.
actually, because the birthday of the nation is on Pesach, not on Shavuos.
How's it connecting with today and what's happening
I'm
today?
telling you,
And what's happening in this
Well,
world?
if any
because
Jews
of
do any
Shavuos.
hard work these days, do you?
No. We
Other
are. You just have to let me
people
get there, and then I'll show you.
Okay.
Listen to this, Hani.
Someone want you to have a better
Hani
conversation.
Takshivi. It's very easy. The way it works is like this. Shavuos, I explained last week, and we expanded it quite strongly, that Shavuos is very well known to be the festival of Kabbalah Torah, right? We received the Torah, Hashem gave us the Torah, and we made ourselves available to receive the Torah. Matan Torah and Kabbalah Torah, two things at the same time. So we understand that because on Shavuos we are taking the Torah on board, we also realize that without Torah the whole world doesn't make sense. Yeah, the whole world is only here in order that you should be able to execute everything which is in the Torah. Torah is 613 mitzvahs for Jews and 7 mitzvahs for non-Jews. And the only reason why we've got Torah is because the Torah is like a kind of a manual showing us how to actually perform those 613 or the 7 mitzvahs. This is the reason why we've got Torah. Now,
It explains a lot more as well, though, doesn't it? It explains like how the whole world and now
no. Don't confuse this, because this is a different story. All the narratives which are in the Torah, are in the Torah because we wrote them ourselves. All these stories which you find in the Torah are stories which were developed with the time, and actually the main core of Torah are the 613 mitzvahs for Jews and 7 mitzvahs for non-Jews. Sheva mitzvah ne'noyach. And the way it works is that because Torah is the main purpose of this world, or the purpose of this world, therefore Hashem needs to make sure that everything else will be available in order for us to perform Torah. Which means, I'll give you one example. If in the Torah there's a mitzvah that we have to shake a lulav on Sukkot, so what do we need in order to shake? We need an esrog tree, we need a lulav tree, and we need hadassim, and we need arovas. We need 4 things. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't judge on Shavuos that there should be enough esrogim, and enough lulovim, and enough hadassim, and enough arovas, then it wouldn't be there. So it's all one circle. Right, so therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is a very simple example, but it even goes more complicated to what Hani wanted to say before, because parnasa, sustenance for any human being is dependent as well. Because if a Jew is going to do Torah in the way which is really going to be complete, and then the money has to be there, because otherwise the money can only be there if you are going to do Torah properly. If you are doing Torah only, halfway, then the money will also only be halfway, because you only get as much money as you need in order to fulfill Torah. Now you're going to ask me, what's about the non-Jews? How are they so rich, and how do they get to everything which they have? And well, so the answer to this is because the non-Jew is assisting the Jew to do what he has to do.
Right.
It's a very complex system, but this Arab which is sitting in Dubai and he is drilling for oil in the middle of the desert, without that oil, we wouldn't be able to fly to Israel and to send our boys into yeshiva there, for example. Right? So you can, wherever you will look, you need every single creature in this world, even the small ant which is crawling in some kind of wood somewhere. Well, you will find it. We're going to find it.
This is answering the question now.
Pardon?
Basically, everything around is just for us to do the mitzvah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to do the Torah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's just like a huge computer game, but physical.
Exactly.
No, it's
That's
true.
exactly
Our
what
whole
it
week-
is.
Dude, it's like
Absolutely.
our
Best-
whole week
best,
should
like,
be surrounded on
interactive
keeping
game
Shabbat.
ever.
And
It's like
to
the
this
whole
I'm
week is
coming.
based on keeping Shabbat. So you work on everything around the week to do Shabbat. So you're working so you can provide for Shabbat, not the other way around. You have your day of rest so you can work the whole week. It's everything.
This
The week towards
is-
Shabbat. That's why it's the last day.
Supposed to prepare for
Yeah.
Shabbos every single day of the week. It's supposed to be prepared.
Or work towards it. Something
Yes,
like
yeah,
that.
you're working
Shabbos.
towards it. One day you're preparing something for it.
I have bought snacks. I bought snacks for Shabbat.
So, do you wish people Shabbat Shalom
Don't work.
when
about that.
Shabbat goes out? Start
you
to
work
prepare for
too?
the following week.
Well, actually, you do this every day. You know that
But you know,
without realizing that you're doing. But if you pray every morning, if you pray every morning, you are
Oh, yeah,
saying
that's-
Shir Shel Yom. Every morning you are going to say one chapter of Tehillim, which is designated for that day. And before you say that chapter, you are saying Hayom Yom Rishon Beshabbat. Today is the first day to the counting of the next Shabbat. Today is the second day, right?
We don't know that.
It's just
It's-
before Elena, before
Just before Elena, at the end of
after Shemona
Shabbos,
Esrei.
Oh, really?
or after Elena, depending.
Is
depending
that like
which
a
Nusach
car-
you
is
buy.
that instead of like they used to do in the carbonates?
Yeah.
Yes,
Is
the
that what it
Shiro.
is?
It's
They
not
would bring
instead
a
of.
carbon?
It's not instead of.
Well, we can't bring carbon.
No. When they did the carbon, when they used to do the carbonos, then the Levi used to sing a song during that, and that was the lyrics of that song. Okay. השיר שהלוויים היו אומרים בבית המקדש. ביום הראשון היו אומרים.
So they were singing and they were bringing the carbonates.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. So it's like a whole musical thing.
It's a whole procedure there. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, but that's
Okay, so that's where we are, and so does everybody follow this?
Yeah, but no.
Jacob, are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting there now.
So you understand everything. The purpose of everything which happens in the world is in order to be able to fulfill mitzvahs, Torah. And if you are fulfilling mitzvahs properly, if you are doing Torah properly, then Hashem will make sure that you have got everything you need in order to be able to fulfill this. This is very simple and very normal to understand, right?
And it's the same thing for everyone has a purpose in this world. So God will provide what we need to fulfill that purpose,
Absolutely.
which is bringing godliness into this world.
We are saying there's a line like this in Ashrei every morning. What's that line?
Question.
You don't understand? Why?
Unfortunately not.
Let's have a look. There's a line like this. Yeah, ask him.
Why does working life take over? Yeah.
It's to bring godliness.
Huh?
Why does working life and the stress of the working life take over?
You know
You allow
why?
it to.
Exactly that. Shkoyach.
You allow it
Because-
to.
allowed to what?
You allow the stress to take over. If you have faith in God that whatever's meant to be and whatever's going to happen, you don't have that stress.
That is very true.
Was är det för?
It's not easy, but
How
it's
can
simple.
it be that work is taking over your life?
It's not easy, but it's
Easy.
Look at
And you
this.
know that it's not going to be a bad thing.
There are many psukim like this, but this is just one example. Peseach es yodecho, umasbia lechol chai rotzoi. Which Baruch Hu opens up his hand and he gives sustenance to everything. It's not a bracha, it's a posuk in Ashrei.
What's this?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Or Peseach es yadecha umasbia lechol chai rotzon. Or we've got another one.
Sorry, what are you reading? What are you reading?
Ashrei.
You know Chinese.
This is a pasuk in Ashrei. And there are many psukim like this. There's a better one.
Yeah, is he talking about the
The
sugar?
prayer before you do.
Noisein lechem
No,
loreivim,
it's
for
the phase
example.
before you start
Very
and
I'll show it to you later.
He'll show it to you.
I'll show it to you later. Okay, so basically this is what it is. Yeah, Torah is here in order to be fulfilled. This is the whole purpose of the world, and the Shkoyach will make sure that we've all got enough sustenance and enough energy and enough of everything physical in order to be able to fulfill the Torah. And this is how it works, because otherwise HaKadosh Baruch Hu cannot even expect us to do it, because if we don't have an esrog to shake, then we can't shake an esrog. Okay, now this is very simple, but if we go
So
deep,
even just having Shabbos,
And-
it's Shabbos.
Or you
It
take
can be
it out
expensive.
on midnight.
Having something like that once a week.
yes,
Let's say like non-Jews, because
Yeah.
I've like heard like even non-Jews would
They
say
just
like
get their
how would
Christmas
I
and
wouldn't
that's
be
it.
able to do that every week,
right.
and to be able to do like we have so many chagim, so it becomes very expensive. They don't know how we would do it, and they've got 2 kids, and you know,
And
these
4
families
dogs.
have like these big families.
That's right.
Where
Six
how we have the
parents.
money?
You see that this is the brothel. This
With
is
that
the
money,
brothel,
with that.
exactly. So you are buying for Shabbos, and it's well known. This is well known in the Gemara. It's well known in Kabbalah. It's well known everywhere. That all the expenses for Shabbos we are not going to lose. It's not going. It's not going off the
And it's
accounts.
not just
of
Shabbos,
what
though,
the
it's
brothel.
everything.
Yeah.
Whether you need a mezuzah,
Yes.
there's money. Whether you need
Anything which is L'Shem
Yeah.
Shomayim is going to be there. You know, everything which is L'Shem Shomayim is going to be reimbursed for you. It will never miss you. You will never miss it. If you have to buy matzahs for Pesach, even though they cost £40 a kilo, you will have the money to buy them. It doesn't matter. Fish.
Whatever you need. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Do you know the story? Give me the glass. Honey, there's a very nice story. Do you know the story of Yosef Michael Shabbos?
No.
I'm sure you know it.
Everybody knows.
So the
tell
Gemara-
us.
So the Gemara has got this beautiful story where there were 2 neighbors living next to each other. One was a rich, maybe Jew, I don't know what religion he had. Let's assume he was a Jew, but he was a bit stingy and he always kept his money all to himself. And he always made sure that nobody's going to take nothing away from him. He always made sure, you know, he was sleeping on a pillow, all his banknotes under his pillow, everything like very, very.
Yeah, I was, gonna say, I was thinking that.
He was a kind of person, he was so anxious about his property that one day he decided that he's going to sell all his assets and he's going to buy a very, very expensive diamond. And that diamond he saw into his hat. Yeah, he took off in his hat, he sewed it into his hat. His next door neighbor was a Jew by the name of Yosef. And Yosef was a very poor guy. And everybody knew that he was poor. Even his neighbor, that rich neighbor, also knew that he was poor. But he did never ever made an effort to help him financially. And even when Yosef would ask him for financial help, he would always find some excuse not to help him. But one of the things which Yosef was very, very particular about was he was extremely particular in keeping Shabbos properly. Not only keeping it properly in terms of not working or not driving or whatever it is, but particular about buying the most expensive food which he could allow himself. He was buying. And one of the things which he was doing, he went always to the market on each day of the week. He went to the market. He bought the most beautiful fish which he could find on that day at the market. And the next day he would find a nicer fish, and he would sell the first fish or eat it or whatever. And he would always keep the nicest fish. One week he was so poor that he couldn't afford even to buy not even one fish. Not even on Friday morning, he didn't have enough money to go and buy a fish. So what did he do? He was very upset. He was very sad that he hasn't got money to buy the fish. You know?
Yeah, I think.
No, I
So he goes to the market, and he's really sad, and he's crying his eyes out, and then suddenly he comes to a stall and he sees this beautiful fish, and he thinks to himself, you know, I really need to buy this because I don't even have anything for Shabbos. And he scratches here and scratches there. No, so that particular week he didn't have any money. Right? And then I don't know what he did, but he went and he scratched together all the pennies which he found somewhere in his house, and he ran back to the marketplace and he bought this fish. And he comes home and he gives this fish to his wife, and his wife is so happy an hour or two before Shabbos, and there's a fish to cook for Shabbos. And what does he do? What does she do? She starts preparing the fish. She opens up the fish and she sees there's a diamond in the stomach of the fish. And she doesn't believe her luck. There's a diamond in the fish. So Yosef takes this diamond, he keeps it somewhere safe till after Shabbos, and he takes the diamond to the jewelers and he offers them for sale, and everybody is amazed about this amazing diamond. And they offer him a lot of money, and now he's got enough money to buy and to pay off his debts, and he turned a rich man over overnight, so to say. Now, how did this diamond come into this fish? So the Gemara says that his next door neighbor, which saw the diamond into his head, sewed the diamond into his head, he was walking because he was so petrified that he's going to lose his wealth. He was just running around all over the place. And at one point, he went to the river. And here came a wind and blew off his head. And it fell into the river. And he was so panicking, and he was trying to retrieve his head because he knew that the diamond is in the head. But the head got lost, it went down the stream, and a fish came and ate that diamond. And that fish, which ate the diamond, came onto the kitchen table of Yosef. So we have gotten a perfect story. This is a Gemara in Shabbos. And it's a real true story, which the Gemara says in Shabbos. And that amazing story shows you perfectly, illustrates you how HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives schar and makes sure that nobody goes out empty when they keep Shabbos properly. You know, when not keeping Shabbos is not only about not smoking on Shabbos or not driving on Shabbos. Let's not talk about this area. We are talking more of how you are beautifying the Shabbos. You know, have you got a beautiful tablecloth? Have you got nice candles on the table?
Men have separate clothes as well.
Yes, of course.
You shouldn't wear any of your weekday clothes on Shabbat.
You should. There's even one opinion that you should have special shoes for Shabbat. Yeah, everything special for Shabbat, of course everybody's going to do it. Everybody's going to do it according to his abilities. You can't. Nobody expects no one to go to Knightsbridge and buy a Burberry whatever. Yeah, that's not the point. The point is everybody does it according to what his own abilities are, and never make the calculation and think that because I'm spending that money for Shabbos, I won't have it for for JW3 on Sunday if I want to go and meet my friends, because you will have it. Shabbos is a priority, and whatever you spend for Shabbos is not going off your account, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu sets for you on Rosh Hashanah. On Rosh Hashanah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides how much wealth everybody should have, and this excludes the expenses for Shabbos and Yom Tov. Okay, so that's the point. The point is that I don't know why we got lost with Shabbos now, but the point, because that's another example how if you keep Torah and mitzvahs properly, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu repays you, because Hashem makes sure that you have always got the means in order to be able to do that. Okay, now if we have got this, that now we know that Torah is here for that reason. Now we want to go back, and the title of this tonight's shiur would have been, how did we, what did we do? What's the accounting of the month of Sivan? Because that month is coming to an end now. Tomorrow on Shabbos we will have Mevochim HaChodesh. We will praise. We will bench the new month. Rosh Chodesh is going to be on Wednesday and Thursday, I think. Right? Wednesday and Thursday? Wednesday and Thursday. So, Wednesday and Thursday, what the new month starts on Thursday?
The 14th is Thursday. So.
Yeah, but which new month? The 14th is not on Thursday. On Thursday is going to be the 1st, not the 14th. Thursday is going to be the 1st of the month of Tammuz. Yeah? Gimel Tammuz is going to be on Shabbos. It's the outside of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. That's going to be on Shabbos. But on Thursday, it's going to be Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. So in this case, we are now almost at the end of Chodesh Sivan, which was an amazing month for us. On one hand, we finished the Sphira just at the beginning of the month. On the other hand, we received the Torah, which is so important, which has been here in order to give us all that energy which we are talking about all the time. And we spoke already twice about taking that inspiration which we took on board on Shavuos and taking it into the future. Now the month comes to an end.
But we did this enough. The golden
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, we are still at the Mount Sinai.
Oh my God, don't take me back to that. I don't remember now.
We are still at Mount Sinai. We haven't gone away from there yet.
We're coming up to the spies.
No. This isn't the parsha. In this week's portion,
Yeah.
we're coming up to the spies. But if you're taking the circle of the timeline,
Well, the spice was last week.
no, this week.
Leading up to it.
If you are coming to the Shlach is this week. If you are coming to the, if we consider the timeline which started with Shavuos, then we are now
The days.
how many days after? We are
About-
14. We are
we're
21
halfway through.
days after.
Moses in the Mount, the first time.
Exactly,
The
absolutely.
first set of 40.
So we are 2/3 of the no, not 2/3. We are halfway through. We are halfway through of the first 40 days. This is where we are now. Okay. Now, what Sivan? How did we do on this Sivan? So, what do you think?
But wait, one second. Why is there a
Individually or as a
connection
whole?
of the trees with Shavuos?
All
I
right.
missed
Okay.
that.
Thank you very much for that. No, so this is the point. The point is
Yeah,
the human being is
Yeah.
the center of the creation.
yeah.
Right? Without the human being, there's no performing of Torah, no performing of mitzvahs. There's nothing. So the same way as the tree is the center of the field, the same way the human being is the center of the system of the world. Now, the
Yeah.
same way as
There has to be a balance in it.
the same day as the tree can only live in the field if the field is a good field for the tree. In the same way, the human being has to show that he is going to use all that abundance which Baruch gives him in order to fulfill the Torah. The human being is the tree is the center of the field, and it can only grow if there's enough water coming through the
But
field.
why
If
does
there's
that
enough.
mention it now? Why not? On Rosh
Because that's where
Hashanah?
we-
No, because
Torah.
because on Atzeres, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in the on Shavuos, HaKadosh Baruch Hu judges the fruit, meaning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu judges the parnasa which every Jew will have if he is
Okay.
completing the
I got
Torah
it.
properly.
Got it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's the connection.
Well, you
Right.
don't know if we're gonna do the Torah properly.
Well, we can take
No,
it
we
upon
can
ourselves.
try.
We can
That's
try.
my one.
Yeah, but you can't how much like everybody.
You cannot, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu can.
Yeah,
Of course he can. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do everything.
Yeah, but I might change my mind and do more.
So
or
then
less
Hashem
Torah.
will correct
Change his
his
plan.
his
Hashem
budget.
will show you. They said the man when he gets married, the woman is like the mara of the man.
It's a
It's like a mirror
mirror.
of the man. Yeah. So
Yes.
if you coming
Oh,
home
who
and you
said
see your
Mara
wife
is in
happy and nice to you, so that's me that Hashem also happy with you. But if you
Exactly.
come home and your wife, you know, a little bit like problem. So in the Shemaim, they don't like you.
That's-
You
That
need
could be.
to try more.
That makes sense.
I thought you said Mara is in bitter.
Yeah, that's
So
what I
So
was
let me show
saying.
you something quite interesting now. Yeah.
If we're in this fruit tree period,
Yeah.
then what's happening in
No,
Israel now
when, no,
with
it's
all of
the
the fires going on?
when I'm good with the
Is it is it connected
Even over the Hashem.
or is it
complicated?
complicated?
It's not complicated. It's not complicated at all. But I
Every day
really,
for them is up.
you know, this problem in Israel. I don't want to go there for the minute, but I'm happy to answer you this later on, because otherwise we will go away from the topic, which I really, because I've got something very nice to show you here.
Yeah.
So the Torah tells us at the beginning of the months of, in order to understand how our month Sivan went to an end, the way in order to find out how this goes to an end, let's think it through again. How did the month start for us? So the Torah tells us at the very beginning of Yisroi, the parsha which deals with the giving of the Torah, the Torah gives us a timeline there. And the way the Torah speaks it out is B'chodesh HaShlishi, L'tzeis B'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim, in the third month when the Jews went out of Egypt, V'yoyim hazeh, on that day, Bo Midbar Sinai, they came to the wilderness of Sinai. So again, in the third month after the Jews went out of Egypt, on that's Sivan, on that day, they came to Midbar Sinai, to the wilderness of Sinai. The question is, what does that day mean? Which day is that?
Third of Sivan.
Why the third?
Why the third?
3 days
It
before
says
they
on
received
that
the
day
Torah.
when they.
It sounds like.
Okay, so that could be one option, which is one opinion in the Gemara. What?
From
From the
what?
very, very beginning?
No, like now.
Okay, so the Torah says, when the Torah tell, huh?
I'm really confused.
Okay, so listen carefully and you will listen
When
carefully
the
and
Jews
you.
left Egypt, no, we're on a bit catching up. So when the Jews left Egypt, in the Chumash it says, on that day, on the 3rd month, they left Egypt and they entered the desert where the mountain was, Mount
Yeah.
Sinai. Now it says, on that day they entered the desert. What day is that? That's what he's asking.
They
Day
left.
of the 3rd month.
Well, that's the question. Which day is it? Is it day 1 of the 3rd month or is it day 3 of the 3rd month? So if we
Well,
continue
day
reading the
2.
Psukim, then we will see that it is 3 days before the Torah was given. We don't know what day it is exactly because we do not know on which day the Torah was given. There
Oh, we
are
don't
3
know?
opinions about that. There are 3 opinions. It
So how
could,
come they do reserve Shavuos?
okay, so that's a reason. That's a question. For this, you'll have to come next year again.
And why?
But the point is that we do not know when the Torah was given. There are 3 opinions. One opinion is the 6th, the 7th, or the 8th of Sivan, of
And
the
why
3rd
don't
month.
we know though?
Because we don't know.
No, like is there a reason it's
No,
it should be like
because
that?
it's cryptic. It's not. The Torah doesn't tell us exactly when it was. Usually, the Torah tells us that on the 14th of the 1st month we have to shecht a korban pesach. So there's an exact date for that. For the Torah, for the giving of the Torah, there's no exact date recorded in the Torah. So, but let's leave that on the side. The
Yeah, but
point,
is that like meant to be like that? Like,
of course,
we're
it's
not
meant to be like
supposed to
this.
know.
Of course,
It's
it's meant to
supposed
be.
secret.
Not a secret, but it has to be.
It was not written down.
It has to be
Wasn't
covered
black and
up
white on
in
that.
order for us to search for it and to find the message in it. And what the message is, that's a question for another time.
But
Oh,
if
so
you work
it's
it out,
all-
we know Shavuot was Shabbat. So it must be the 7th.
Okay, so you're doing the calculations of the Gemara.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are okay. So there are some
So
opinions which go down
so-
that route.
You count 49 days after leaving Egypt.
Okay, so that is another opinion in the Gemara.
You
This is
count
another.
how many
This
days.
is another opinion in the Gemara.
But
This is
why
another.
49?
But this would
Again.
only no. But this what you give us would only be true if we say that the Jews counted, if that generation which left Egypt also counted, and that is not a clear cut thing. That's the Gemara, the Rabbeinu Nissim at the end of our Pesochim, at the end of Masechtas Pesochim, goes down that route. He quotes a medrash, which nobody knows where that medrash is, which says that the Jews of that generation also counted, because the medrash says that the Jews approached Moshe and they told to Moshe Rabbeinu, you told us all the time that we are going to go to a mountain and to receive some messages of Hashem. When is this going to happen? So Moshe answers them, says the Medrash, you know when it's going to happen? Count every day. And when you finish counting 49, on the next day, this is when it will happen. But according to this Medrash, we don't know when did the Jews approach Moshe and start to count. Right? It's not clear cut that they started in that year, like we are starting from the 2nd day of Pesach. Yeah, you understand? Right. So therefore, these are all opinions which are around, and that's why we don't know it for clear. But what we do know is that the Torah pinpoints to a specific day, because it says by Yom Hazeh, on that day they came to the wilderness they came to the wilderness of Sinai. So the word this, yeah, when we pinpoint to this, the word is Hazeh. How do you spell Hazeh? Hey, Zion, hey, exactly. And so in Hasidic forum, in Hasidic books, or in let's say, I'm not going to call it Kabbalistic books because it's not very Kabbalistic. It's also in Bnei Yissaschar and it's in different Lubavitcher books. It's brought down the following concept. Hey is always a letter which is a female letter. Okay, hey is a female letter. So we've got 2 female letters here. We've got a hey at the beginning of the word, and we've got a hey at the end of the word.
Also Shabbos.
And in the middle, we've got Zion, which is you're already jumping the gun because you're going to the Shabbos. But before we get there, I'm going to come there as well. Zion, either as Zohar, yeah, it's going to be a male. So the male is going to be in the middle between two females, right? And why? Because the male needs a lot of female support in order to be able to, exactly, yeah, in order to perform the way he has to perform. Yeah, so this has got a practical reason, because the only way that a male can really perform in, bring out.
So you need 2 females.
No, yeah. Very good.
That's why males
Very
crave.
good. Huh?
That's why males crave more female attention than vice versa.
No, well, it's true that they do crave, but that's got a different reason. For that, the Gemara gives us another reason. Yeah, but and it's not also not clear cut, because there's another Gemara which says that a female craves the male more than the male craves the female. So we have got both. Okay, but
was the day they entered the
Hazeh.
desert, not the day they got the Mazeh.
they entered the desert. They entered because it's got to do with the fact that they prepared themselves. They got themselves ready to.
From when they started counting was Yom Hazeh.
No. 3 days before.
3 days before Matan Torah. 3 days
Ah.
before Matan Torah. 3 days. Shloishes Yemei Bolle. Yeah, 3 days. At 3 days of preparation
In
the desert in order to get your mindset ready to receive the Torah. You're not coming. You're not like walking into the desert, waiting at the standing at the mountain, and Hashem drops down and gives you the Torah. You have to get ready for it.
So, but Yom Hazeh, it was
3 days.
3 days before
and
that.
then they started preparing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So actually, Hashem told him that 2 days would be enough, and Moshe Rabbeinu added on a day separately because he thought that he needs 3 days at least. Why do
women were helping them prepare?
exactly? How?
Yeah.
How? I'll come to this in a sec. Okay, let's tell you this, because they were prepared, they were ready, they made themselves ready that they are okay with this, that the men are getting separated from them completely. That they are not going to engage in sexual activities. They know that they have to be separate. They have to be completely away, and they yes, in order to purify, because this is what the Torah also tells us afterwards. They have to clean the garments and get themselves purified, and this is the way to do it. And the women were absolutely okay with this, and they were happy with this. This is how they helped them to prepare. But the point is, wait a second. The point is that Zion, which is in the middle of between those two hays, has also got a numerical value of 7. Yes, Zion is 7.
Yeah.
Does everybody agree?
Yeah.
Okay. And Avraham Avinu, now this is getting very interesting, because Abraham is the first person to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu after they lost it. Yeah, so Adam was the first one to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Garden of Eden, but he was a rebel already then. Yeah, and he was an apikoros, it even says in the Gemara in one point. And then everybody got involved with Avodah Zorah, and people started to believe in all different kind of idols. When Avraham Avinu came, he started to reunify that, and he made it clear that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only God which is to believe in, and that was a clear-cut case from Avraham Avinu. And there are 7 generations from Abraham till Moshe. Moshe is the 7th generation after Avraham Avinu. So we need 7 generations of refinement in order to be able to perceive the Torah again. Right? And this is the reason why we have got the Zion in the middle of this word, Hazeh. Hazeh means this day. You know what this day is? Because here we've got the Moshe Rabbeinu, which is the 7th generation, after Avraham Avinu, after the world starts to reconcile again in terms of belief. And this is why now it is the right time to. Huh? Ich habe gesagt, das Zion, the letter Zion is 7. Huh?
Wait, you were saying something about like Abraham.
Like 7 generations.
Avraham Avinu, from Avraham Avinu till Moshe Rabbeinu are 7 generations.
So,
And the letter Zion has got a numerical value of 7. And the 2 hays, and this will be now the next thing, the 2 hays together have got which gematria? 10. And what is 10? So 10, well, also, of course, we've got the 10 commandments, but we've got the,
Then is the 10 level.
Oh, yeah.
exactly, we've got the Esospheres, and the number 10 is actually only a 1.
1 0.
Because the 0 is nothing, and the 1, right? So it's the 1, and the unification of this whole system comes and becomes evident through the receiving of the Torah, when Baruch Hu himself is going to give us the Torah. That's going to be the best proof that this refinement from Avraham Avinu until Moshe Rabbeinu with the 7 generations has worked, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down, and this is now showing us that the unification is finished. We came to it, yeah? So this is what we see here. The other thing which we see is, it's funny enough that why did it take 7 generations to do this? Because the number 7 is the number which is going to help us to reach these kind of concepts. In the same way as we see that in Brias HaOlam, in the creation, it took 6 days, and the 7th day is the day which is showing us the bond which we have got between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. Yeah, it's a sign Beini Ovein Bnei Yisrael, between me and the Jewish people. This is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. And when is this happening? This is happening on day 7. So we see that the day 7 is the important number in order to give us the system of reaching a completion, of reaching a sign, of reaching an agreement with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of reaching something which we can testify to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we are with him. Okay? And so that is what it means, Hazeh. So why do I mention this all now? Because when we come to the end of the month of Sivan, and we already spoke a lot about building up the Simcha, which we are still engaged with. Yeah? We are still building up our joy, because we are, we started off in Adar, and we are doing this until Rosh Chodesh Av. We are building up Simcha, and we know that we are building up Simcha with the backing of Torah. Yeah, the biggest Simcha of a Jew is when he can learn Torah properly. Then there are many psukim in Tanakh which back this up. Torah is the biggest joy of a Jew altogether. And we are now fit. Pardon?
The wisdom of God.
This is the wisdom of God, of course. It's Chochmah.
Which is the wisdom of the world.
Absolutely. And that's, by the way, the reason, one more reason why we need female energy as well, because a female has got Bino. Bino Yesero Nitno Lahem, yeah? It's not only Chochmah, the wisdom which is called Chochmah, but it's also wisdom in terms of Bino, which is also needed. And the female has got much more Bino in order. Bino, how do you
Understanding.
Yeah, understand. Okay, understand. Clear understanding. This is what the female has got more than a male. So we need these in order to be able to exactly Chochmah, Bino, and Das.
I don't speech and that.
And that's why we need it all. And therefore, when we come to the end of the month of Sivan, we have to make sure that we've got all of this in our backpack, because when we walk into Tammuz afterwards, we are going to have a few difficult weeks afterwards. So, especially when we approach Shivoso B'Tammuz, difficult not in a sad way, but difficult in a way that we will have to know how to deal with it. We have to know how to deal with these days in order to get out the best positive energy. Something which has been extremely easy in Sivan, counting the Omer, doing something tangible, every day counting up, one more day, working on our attributes. This is an easy thing to do. But when we are leaving Sivan now, and we have got all these concepts in our bag, we have to make sure that when we are in Tammuz and we do not have those technicalities to our hand, that we are taking out this wisdom which we acquired in Sivan in order not to lose it, and in order to turn any energy which will approach us into something positive. It's very easy, especially in the countries in which we live. Maybe in the southern hemisphere it's different, but here where it's hot in the summer, people tend to be, nervous and heated up. And so, let's take it easy, and let's not forget, we just came away from Matan Torah. We just came away from a very elevated place. and we have got a lot of tools in our pocket in order to deal with it. And this is what we want to do. And if we manage to do this, then we will pass Shivos Obetamos, and we will pass Tisha B'Av, and we will go into an Elul, which is going to be really amazing. And that's really our goal. Our goal is to be able to build up and up and up and up, so that we come to Rosh Hashanah, that we didn't fall down 50 times on the way, but we are just doing it in small steps. We don't have to do massive, big steps. Everybody can grow in small steps, and everybody, the small steps which we are going to go are going to be a little bit more than it is comfortable for us. And if we manage this, then we are going to have an amazing time afterwards. So that's actually the point which has to be taken away from the months of Sivan. And next week, when we are already in Tammuz, because next Thursday is going to be the 1st of Tammuz, then we are going to deal with the months of Tammuz, and we will start working towards Shivos Obetamos, the 17th of Tammuz, in order to understand how can we take some positive stuff out of that. That's the golden calf, that's the breaking of the luchas. We're going to work this out. How? No, come on.
You were meant to bring that grid so we can put it on the wall.
So in the meantime, have a good
There
evening.
was a day that a lot
The
of
golden
bad
calf
stuff has
became
happened on
the
that day.
day
So I told
that
you.
of Tisha B'Av.
It's 40 days after we received Torah. He came down, touched them.
Right. That was on
Yeah.
Shivas at the camera.
Yeah.
And then Tisha.
The
So
the
that's
walls and Shabbat Shabbat.
Wait. So what day?
I
Yes.
Is it Shivas of Tammuz or is it Tisha B'Av? That there's I think 5 major bad.
Both of them had major
Both of
things.
them. Both of them.
So both of them they're equals in like bad days.
Well, Tisha B'Av was the worst.
No, the other one's worse because they actually destroyed it.
No, the Tisha B'Av has got to do with this week's parsha. Let me take you there.
So Luchos was broken on.
Luchas were both broken on Shivos Obetamos.
Before you do that, can I ask one question?
Yes.
I forgot.
They break the wall.
I'll come back to.
Why can we be careful? The 9 days coming
Yeah,
towards
yeah.
Tisha B'Av?